Hi everyone, happy Thursday. I hope you made it. I hope you got most of your work done. If not, you still have tomorrow to recover something, so no worries. I am still doing my video stuff for today, so this video will be short and sweet, hopefully, and then we can read a little bit more tomorrow when I've got more time and more internet. We are picking up on chapter 48 called On the Tail of a Rat. Remember, yesterday we left Desperaux with Botticelli Rimorso, and he took his tail, and he's taking him into the dungeons. So we know that he should not trust the rat, but he doesn't really have another choice at this point. So let's see what happens. Let's see if he's got some luck. Have you ever had hold of the tail of a rat? At best, it is an unpleasant sensation, scaly and cold, similar to holding onto a small, narrow snake. At worst, when you are dependent upon a rat for your survival, and when a part of you is certain that you are being led nowhere except to your death, it is a hideous sensation indeed to have nothing but a rat's tail to cling to. Nonetheless, Desperaux held on to Botticelli Rimorso, and the rat led him deeper and deeper into the dungeon. Despero's eyes had, by this point, adjusted quite well to the darkness, though it would have been better if they had not, for the things he saw made him shiver and shake. I'll read that again, that it makes sense to me. Adjusted quite well to the darkness, though it would have been better if they had not, for the things he saw made him shiver and shake. What did he see? He saw that the floor of the dungeon was littered with tufts of fur, knots of red thread, and the skeletons of mice. Everywhere there were tiny white bones glowing in the darkness, and he saw, in the dungeon tunnels through which Botticelli led him, the bones of human beings too. Grinning skulls and delicate finger bones rising up out of the darkness and pointing towards some truth best left unspoken. Desperaux closed his eyes. But it didn't help. He saw as if his eyes were still open, wide, like the bones, the tufts of hair, the knots of thread, the despair. Ha ha! Exactly! Botticelli laughed as he negotiated the twists and turns. Oh, yes, exactly. If what was in front of Desperaux was too horrible to contemplate, what followed behind him was, perhaps, even worse. Rats. A happy, hungry, vengeful parade of rats, their noses up in the air, sniffing, sniffing. Mouse! Sang out one rat joyfully. Yes, oh yes! A mouse, agreed another, but something else too. Soup! Called out another rat. Yes, soup, said the others, and they agreed. Blood, sang a rat. Blood, they all agreed together. And then they sang, Here, mousy, mousy, mousy. Here, little mousy. Botticelli called out to the rats. Mine, he said. This little treasure is all mine, gentlemen and ladies. Please, I beg you, do not infringe on my discovery. Mr. Rimorso, said Desperaux. He turned and looked behind him and saw the rats, their red eyes and their smiling mouths. He closed his eyes again. He kept them closed. Mr. Rimorso! He shouted. Yes, said Botticelli. Mr. Rimorso, said Desperaux, and he was crying now. He couldn't help it. Please, the princess! Tears! Shouted the rats. We smell tears, Mousie, we do. Please, shouted Desperaux. Here is Botticelli, I believe. I don't know what's in his hand. He's got something gross in his hand that I can't really see what it is. But then you've got Desperaux holding on to his gross little tail. Ah, wrong way. So you can see how small Desperaux is, and you can see how gross Botticelli's face is, and how fat he is. He's very fat. Little friend, said Botticelli, little Desperaux Tilling, I promised you, and I will keep that promise. The rat stopped. Look ahead of you, he said. What do you see? Desperaux opened his eyes. Light, he said. Exactly, said Botticelli. Light. Chapter 49. What do you want, Miggery Sow? We're going to find Mig. Again, reader, we must go backward before we go forward. We must consider for a moment what had occurred with the rat and the serving girl and the princess down in the dungeon before Desperaux made his way to them. What happened was this. Roscuro led the Pea and Mig deep into the dungeon to a hidden chamber, and there he directed Mig to put the princess in chains. Gore, said Mig, she's going to have a hard time learning her lessons if she's all chained up like. Do as I say, said Roscuro. Remember, he's a very smart mouse, and Mig is not a very smart girl. Maybe, said Mig, before I lock her up, her and me could switch outfits so we could start in already with her being me and me being a princess. Oh, yes, said Resquirrel, certainly. A wonderful idea, Miss Miggery. Princess, take off your crown and give it to the serving girl. The pea sighed and took off her crown and handed it to Mig, and Mig put it on, and it slid immediately right down her small head and came to rest, quite painfully, on her poor, abused ears. It's a big-ish thing, she said, and painful-like. Well, well, said Resquirrel. How do I look? Mig asked, smiling at him. Ridiculous, he said, laughable. Mig stood, blinking back tears. You mean I don't look like a princess? She said to the rat. I mean, said Resquirrel, you will never look like a princess, no matter how big a crown you put on your tiny head. You look exactly like the fool you are and always will be. Now, make yourself useful and chain the princess up. Dress-up time is over. Mig sniffed and wiped at her eyes, and then bent to look at the pile of chains and locks on the floor. And now, princess, he said, I'm afraid that the time for your truth has arrived. I will now tell you what your future holds. As you consigned me to darkness, I so consign you, too, to a life spent in this dungeon. Mig looked up. Ain't she going upstairs to be a serving maid? No, said Resquirrel. Ain't I going to be a princess then? No, said Resquirrel. But I want to be a princess. No one, said Resquirrel, cares what you want. As you know, reader, Miggery Sow had heard this sentiment expressed many times in her short life. But now, in the dungeon, it hit her full force. The rat was right. No one cared what she wanted. No one had ever cared. And perhaps, worst of all, no one ever would care. I want! Cried Mig. Shh, said the princess. Shut up, said the rat. I want, sobbed Mig. I want. What do you want, Mig? Said the princess softly. Eh? Shouted Mig. What do you want, Miggery Sow? The princess shouted. Don't ask her that, said Resquirrel. Shut up. But it was too late. The words had been said. The question, at last, had been asked. The world stopped spinning, and all of creation held its breath, waiting to hear what it was that Miggery Sow wanted. I want, said Mig. Yes, shouted the pea. I want my ma, cried Mig into the silent waiting world. I want my ma. Oh, said the princess. She held out her hand to Mig. Mig took hold of it. I want my mother too, said the princess softly, and she squeezed Mig's hand. Stop it, shouted Resquirrel. Chain her up! Chain her up! Gore, said Mig. I ain't gonna do it. You can't make me do it. I got the knife, don't I? She took the knife and held it up. If you have any sense at all, said Resquirrel, and I heartily doubt that you do, you will not use that instrument on me. Without me, you will never find your way out of the dungeon, and you will starve to death here, or worse. And here is where the princess asks Mig what she wants. She's got a really tiny head and a really big body. Oh, there we go. There's the princess asking her, what does she want? And then you've got Resquirrel with his stupid spoon on his head that is his crown. Gore, said Mig. Then lead us out now, or I will chop you up into little rat bits. No, said Resquirrel. The princess shall stay here in the darkness, and you, Mig, will stay with her. But I want to go upstairs, said Mig. I'm afraid that we are stuck here, Mig, shouted the princess, unless the rat has a change of heart and decides to lead us out. There will be no changes of heart, said Resquirrel. None. Gore, said Mig. She lowered the knife. And so the rat and the princess and the serving girl sat together in the dungeon as, outside the castle, the sun rose and moved through the sky and sank to the earth again, and night fell. They sat together until the candle had burned out and another one had to be lit. They sat together in the dungeon. They sat and sat. And reader, truthfully, they might be sitting there still if a mouse had not arrived. Chapter 50, in which the princess says his name. Oh, actually, Where's our time? We've got time. It's only 2 pages. Princess! Desperaux shouted. Princess, I have come to save you! The princess heard her name. She looked up. Desperaux, she whispered. And then she shouted it. Desperaux! Reader, nothing is sweeter in this sad world than the sound of someone you love calling your name. Nothing. For Desperaux, the sound was worth everything. His lost tail, his trip to the dungeon, and back out of it, and back into it again. He ran towards the princess. But Roscuro, baring his teeth, blocked the mouse's way. The princess cried, Oh no, Rat, please, don't hurt him, he is my friend. Mig said, Don't worry, princess, I will save the Misi. She took the kitchen knife. She aimed to cut off the rat's head, but she missed her mark. Whoopsie, said Miggery Sow. What do you think she cut off? Chapter 51 is called What Is That Smell? Which is a really gross chapter to continue when we don't know what she cut off. But all I know is that it says, Ow! Screamed Roscuro, so we're going to find out. But we'll continue reading tomorrow, and we might be able to finish it. We'll see. Bye!